My wife and I live in a different state to my family, however we often travel back to my home state for special family occasions, birthdays and Christmas for example. My wife is a 22-year military veteran and when she discharged it was medically. She has been diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety and depression and has spent several stints in psychiatric hospital, one for 4 months. She was prescribed an assistance, service, dog who we have trained up under the supervision of a registered organization and she, we'll call her Daisy, is formally qualified and papered. She goes pretty much wherever we go, including interstate flying in the cabin of the plane, with my wife in an ambulance to hospital, and also was interned with her at psychiatric units. My family are all aware of this and mostly supportive. However, the last time we visited for my niece's 21st birthday, I was questioned by both my sister and my niece about whether Daisy was accompanying my wife to the party, which I responded that she was, as my wife really struggles in loud crowded environments. There was about 80 people and loud music together in one room. My niece suggested several reasons why Daisy shouldn't go: loud music, balloons, lots of people. Which I assured her Daisy was fine with, and they already know this being very familiar with Daisy's very calm temperament. My sister then spoke to me after my niece and also said similar things, not outright saying, but heavily suggesting it would be better if Daisy didn't attend. I just said if my wife feels she needs her, she will be attending. Sometimes my wife has been able to do small things without her, but never big events like parties, even shopping centers and restaurants. Daisy comes with her. Anyway, the party came and went. My wife had to take 4 Valium to cope, but managed to sit through the evening with Daisy by her side at her feet at a table. Other people throughout the evening went over to talk to her and most didn't even notice Daisy was there. For myself, I'm used to my wife's conditions and knew that although she was struggling, she was coping and even enjoying talking to people at times. I danced the night away, periodically sitting down beside my wife and checking in. After the party was over, we had a few days at my sister's house where the topic of her son's impending wedding came up. Again I was asked by my sister if my wife would be taking Daisy. I again said yes, more than likely, for the same reasons as the 21. Lots of people, loud noises, crowded environment. Again it was inferred that the event wouldn't be suitable for Daisy. The tables were really crowded, lots of people, plus my sister suggested that if my wife didn't have Daisy she would be able to get up and dance. Before my wife had her breakdown, she was not a dancer and now with her anxiety, there's no way she'd be comfortable out on a dance floor. I was so taken aback I didn't know how to respond. My wife heard my sister talking to me and so she suggested she only go to the ceremony and skip the reception to avoid my sister getting stressed out about her dog. My sister snapped they are at the same venue. Then softened it with of course we want you to come. Both my wife and I felt very uncomfortable and kept reassuring my sister Daisy would be fine as she has been taught to sit under my wife's chair out of the way. It felt like the concerns raised weren't genuine concerns but just a way to feel like Daisy was unwelcome. We flew back home not long after and this is where I may be TA. We woke up the next morning and the first words out of my wife's mouth were maybe and should just stay home for the wedding and you go by yourself so I don't stress your sister out by taking Daisy. I felt so bad for her. It's taken such a long time for her to feel comfortable in going out in public, and Issy has been instrumental in that, and now my family were making her feel like she wasn't welcome with her assistant's dog. I reassured her but later in the day I rang my sister and told her what my wife had said, and that perhaps more care could be taken to make sure my wife wasn't left feeling that her conditions were not considered. I told her my wife had said perhaps she shouldn't go to avoid stressing her out and my sister just said yes and? To which I replied that she had been prescribed a dog for a reason, and without her dog my wife would likely not go anywhere, like she used to. My wife said well she was better last time she was down, she didn't take her everywhere. I explained that mental health goes up and down. Last time she was doing a bit better however she'd just been sick and was put on medication that messed with her regular meds and so was only just coming out of that. Also I reminded my sister the last time we didn't really go out apart from to a restaurant, to which Daisy also came. I just feel like I'm constantly trying to prove my wife's medical conditions. Even her PTSD has been questioned as, my sister's words, she didn't go to Afghanistan. She even had her best friend question me about it. I'm tempted to tell them some of my wife's horror stories, but I just keep it general so they don't get secondhand trauma. My sister also said that she had to think about other people and I said why? Does someone have a problem with Daisy attending? And she said her son, my nephew, and his future wife had spoken to her about it. I said well I'll ring them then, which she hastily replied, no you can't, they spoke to me in confidence. I said I just don't understand what you're trying to achieve, and she said it's not just about you, I have to think of other people. I said well you wouldn't be asking Nana if she was bring her wheelie walker, and she said actually Nana might be in a wheelchair so I'll have to put her at the end of the table, to WH I snapped and said yes, but you wouldn't tell her she's not allowed to bring her wheelchair. And she replied, I didn't say you couldn't bring Daisy. I said back that it was disingenuous to pretend that your questions aren't designed to make us feel like she shouldn't be coming. To which she replied that she couldn't handle this stress I was causing her and she said goodbye and hung up. So Ada for calling my sister out on all her questions regarding my wife's assistant's dog?